Wilhelm was at the Imperial Army headquarters in Spa, Belgium, when the uprisings in Berlin and other centers took him by surprise in late 1918. Mutiny among the ranks of his beloved Kaiserliche Marine, the Imperial Navy, profoundly shocked him. After the outbreak of the German Revolution, Wilhelm could not make up his mind whether or not to abdicate. Up to that point, he accepted that he would likely have to give up the imperial crown, but still hoped to retain the Prussian kingship. The unreality of this belief was revealed when, in the hope of preserving the monarchy in the face of growing revolutionary unrest, Chancellor Prince Max of Baden announced Wilhelm's abdication of both titles on the 9th of November 1918. Prince Max himself was forced to resign later the same day, when it became clear that only Friedrich Ebert, leader of the SPD, could effectively exert control. Wilhelm consented to the abdication only after Ludendorff's replacement, General Wilhelm Groener, had informed him that the officers and men of the army would march back in good order under Paul von Hindenburg's command, but would certainly not fight for Wilhelm's throne on the home front. The monarchy's last and strongest support had been broken, and finally even Hindenburg, himself a lifelong royalist, was obliged, with some embarrassment, to advise the emperor to give up the crown. 48.
And again, that's partly true and partly false, because the fact of the matter is that Kaiser didn't officially give up his titles to the throne of emperor and king. He said passively to the people that he's working with that if it will help stop civil war in Germany, I'll give up the title of Emperor of Germany, but keep the crown of King of Prussia. He never said he was going to, he never gave up, he never announced and said he was going to give up his title to Prussia. This guy just basically bluntly said that when he didn't say it. Bluntly said that Kaiser gave up both thrones, which is false. Kaiser didn't give up his throne necessarily. He said indirectly that he would give up his emperorship if it would stop civil war, but keep the crown of Prussia. But then this guy goes on and says, well, Kaiser agreed to give up both crowns, or both crowns, which was false. All the radical elements were working at, or all the radical elements were at work to overthrow the Kaiser Wilhelm II and his empire. Kaiser Wilhelm, until his death, was King of Prussia till his death. He never gave that up. Nor did he really give up the emperorship either. Again, I just say, pair this article with what Kaiser says in his memoirs, and you make your own decision, mine on that, and read other historians.
A memorial to German soldiers killed in World War I. The fact that the High Command might one day abandon the Kaiser had been foreseen in December 1897, when Wilhelm had visited Otto von Bismarck for the last time. Bismarck had again warned the Kaiser about the increasing influence of militarists, especially of the admirals who were pushing for the construction of a battle fleet. Bismarck's last warning had been, "Your Majesty, so long as you have this present officer corps, you can do as you please. But when this is no longer the case, it will be very different for you." 49. Subsequently, Bismarck had predicted accurately, Jena came 20 years after the death of Frederick the Great, The crash will come 20 years after my departure if things go on like this. A prophecy fulfilled almost to the month. 50. On November 10th, Wilhelm, now Wilhelm Hohenzollern, private citizen, crossed the border by train and went into exile in the Netherlands, which had remained neutral throughout the war. 51. Upon the conclusion of the Treaty of Versailles in early 1919, Article 227 expressly provided for the prosecution of Wilhelm for a supreme offence against international morality and the sanctity of treaties, but Queen Wilhelmina refused to extradite him, despite appeals from the Allies. King George V wrote that he looked on his cousin as the greatest criminal in history, but opposed Prime Minister David Lloyd George's proposal to hang the Kaiser. President Woodrow Wilson of the United States rejected extradition, arguing that punishing Wilhelm for waging war would destabilize international order and lose the peace. 52. Wilhelm first settled in Ammerongen, where on 28 November he issued a formal statement of abdication and released his soldiers and officials from their oath of loyalty to him, thus formally ending the Hohenzollerns' 400-year rule over Prussia. He subsequently purchased a country house in the municipality of Dorn, known as Hugh's Dorn, on the 16th of August 1919 and moved in on the 15th of May 1920. 53. This was to be his home for the remainder of his life. Although he had abdicated, he never formally relinquished his titles, and hoped to return to Germany in the future. The Weimar Republic allowed Wilhelm to remove 23 railway wagons of furniture, 27 containing packages of all sorts, one bearing a car and another a boat, from the new palace at Potsdam. 54.
Again, partly true and partly false. He never issued a formal declaration of his abdication of the throne. Compare what he says in his memoirs with this article, and you'll see the difference. This stupid revisionist Zionist, and as planned, the Allies and their ideas, they were successfully able to thwart and overthrow the German Empire and the Kaiser. I only wish that these so-called allies could have been brought to justice in some way. But he did live in that place for the rest of his life and so forth. And he did hope to return to Germany and to restore the empire.
Life in exile. In 1922, Wilhelm published the first volume of his memoirs 55, a very slim volume that insisted he was not guilty of initiating the Great War, and defended his conduct throughout his reign, especially in matters of foreign policy. For the remaining 20 years of his life, he entertained guests, often of some standing, and kept himself updated on events in Europe. He grew a beard and allowed his famous moustache to droop. He also learned the Dutch language. Wilhelm developed a penchant for archaeology while residing at the Corfu Achillean, excavating at the site of the Temple of Artemis in Corfu, a passion he retained in his exile. He had bought the former Greek residence of Empress Elizabeth after her murder in 1898. He also sketched plans for grand buildings and battleships when he was bored. In exile, one of Wilhelm's greatest passions was hunting, and he bagged thousands of animals, both beast and bird. Much of his time was spent chopping wood, and thousands of trees were chopped down during his stay at Dorn. 56. In the early 1930s, Wilhelm apparently hoped that the successes of the German Nazi Party would stimulate interest in a restoration of the monarchy, with his eldest grandson as the fourth Kaiser. His second wife, Hermann, see below, actively petitioned the Nazi government on her husband's behalf.
partly true, partly false.